All right, good morning. Thank you for joining us. My name is Steve Bruder. I'm the State Agriculture Development Committee's Planning and Manager. The goal of today's session is to introduce our partners in the farm preservation community to the New Jersey Conservation Blueprint Project and have an opportunity for your input and answer any questions you may have. Specifically, we're going to be talking today about the Agricultural Priorities Theme Map and the priority lands for agricultural preservation ranking criteria that's used in that map. Today we are joined by Laura Schwach. Laura is the Director of Outreach and Education with the New Jersey Conservation Foundation. Laura manages the Conservation Assistance Program that includes organizing the annual State Land Conservation Conference, coordinating workshops for the Land Trust Network, and administering a grant program for conservation nonprofits. Laura today is going to be giving us an overview of the Conservation Blueprint Project, its history and goals, and where it's headed. We're also pleased to have Dr. John Hasse. John is an associate professor of geography and director of environmental studies at Rowan University, where he teaches various courses in geography, GIS, and planning. Many of you are likely familiar with Dr. Hasse's work, in particular his various publications and projects on land use change in New Jersey. John will be discussing the New Jersey MAP project, of which New Jersey Conservation Blueprint is a part, and providing details about the features of Conservation Blueprint, including the data layers and methodology used to derive the Priority Lands for Agricultural Preservation layer. Before we get started, just a bit of housekeeping. We're going to keep this session to about an hour. We're going to hope to have time for some questions at the end of the session. So if you do have questions, there is a questions tab on the right-hand side of your screen. Please type in the questions there, and we'll get to them, hopefully at the end. So the SADC was brought into this project going back to 2015 to provide input into the agricultural theme. As you're likely familiar through our Planning Incentive Grant Program and the pre-planning required for counties and municipalities to qualify for that funding, we try to target our preservation efforts to preserve blocks of contiguous farmland that provide maximum flexibility and viability for the agricultural industry and to protect our most important agricultural resources. Our goal in this process is to make sure the methodology used in the project coincides with these goals and serves as an important resource for farm preservation program administrators, especially those administrators who may not have immediate access to desktop GIS software. The development of this priority lands layer, Dr. Hasse will describe, was an iterative process. We went back and forth a number of times with the agricultural subcommittee on the project, tweaking the methodology and the data sources used to get to a point where we felt that the model was consistent with how we prioritize farmland at the state, and how that it would highlight parcels that would be good fits for the program. I think we've gotten to that point now where the model is neither overly inclusive as to be meaningless or excessively restrictive. And so there was a bit of a gut check here, in terms of looking at the map, looking at the areas that we know where we work and where our partners have identified in the past. So anxious to see what your input is on that. There's a couple things I wanted you to keep in mind as you review the project yourself. This is a statewide analysis based on the GIS layers that are available and consistent statewide. And although it includes many of the similar considerations that you may use for your own programs, it may not reflect all the unique factors or the same weighting of those factors that the counties and municipalities use to rank their own programs. Though the ADA and the project area layers, the sewer service area layer, and a variety of other planning layers are included in the project as reference layers, there is no planning context included in the prioritization analysis itself. So that's something that's important to keep in mind. So this is an agricultural resource analysis, and it doesn't necessarily consider all the factors that we do when evaluating the suitability of a property for farm preservation. As you're working to understand the prioritization of the individual parcels in the model, it really does help to play with it, to turn on on and off the individual component layers, especially the preserve farm and open space layers and the soils layer. It does take some time to play with the map and its components to really fully understand what's going on, and we certainly encourage you to spend some time with it. It also helps to understand the base data itself, to really understand how to use the model and what the limitations of the data are. There's an updated methodology document that's been uploaded to the project, and John will point out where that is. And we also added that to the webinar as a handout. We're continuing to work with Rowan to refine that document, and we're going to take any questions that you may have or comments as well today and after this session. So again, we're looking for your comments and your input. The goal is to make this a project that's useful to you and has your buy-in. This will be a long-term, this is an ongoing long-term project and partnership, and we'll be offering our continued support going forward, and making sure that the data layers included in the model are updated as necessary and regularly. So that's all I had. So let's get started here with Laura. Let me put Laura in the driver's seat here.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura with New Jersey Conservation Foundation, and I'm joined here with Tanya Nolte, who our GIS manager, who is an integral part of the Blueprint team as well. If you don't know the Conservation Foundation, we're a nonprofit organization dedicated to the preservation of open space and farmland throughout the state of New Jersey. We've helped preserve 17,300 acres of farmland in our over 50-year history and have likely partnered with many of you. So we feel very fortunate to be part of the New Jersey Conservation Blueprint team. The team consists of the Nature Conservancy and Rowan University. The Rowan University and a steering committee of over 21 members, which I'll describe in a minute. But New Jersey, we're excited about this planning tool and how it has evolved. One of the New Jersey Conservation Foundation has a long history of looking at statewide maps, and we started with I don't know what's going on. Statewide maps and looking at starting with Mylar maps and magic markers, and that was the genesis of Garden State Greenways. If some of you remember this, it's the first online map showing lands that needed to be preserved for natural resources, including soil quality. So as Garden State Greenways became out of date and the technology which was used to develop it became a little clunky, we welcome the chance to team up with the Nature Conservancy, who has a stellar history of land preservation in New Jersey, and Rowan University, who has the creative and technical talent to convey information efficiently and accurately. Dr. Hassey was on the GIS, or the Garden State Greenways technical team. So now we've
Laura, let me stop you. Does everyone see Laura's screen, or you still see my screen of the entire state?
I've got a screen up that shows the preserved lands in New Jersey, in farmland and open space.
Okay. Okay.
Does everybody see that?
There we go. Okay.
I see that now. Yeah.
We got it.
Okay. So we feel a great need to speed up the pace of land conservation and direct that speed to preserve the best of New Jersey's remaining undeveloped lands. In New Jersey, 1.5 million acres of land have been developed. 1.4 million acres are already preserved. That figure includes farmland, leaving about 1 million acres not developed and not preserved that should be protected for important agricultural and natural qualities. One of the most innovative features of the blueprint, the blueprint consists of several maps: water quality, ecological priorities, agriculture, which we'll focus on mostly. But one of the unique aspects is this community green space that identifies space for people. And these priorities include natural lands remaining in the cities and suburbs that can be farmed for local food, connected for trails, reclaimed in flood-prone zones. So at the end of 30 years, when the Garden State Preservation Trust funds now flowing may be used up, we can feel confident that the best of New Jersey's nature has been preserved. So that's the motivation behind the blueprint. So then how do we get that done? We called together a bunch of experts. If we want to increase the pace, now how do we do it? So we called together this steering committee that's met regularly since January 2016. It consists of 21 representatives from the State Agriculture Development Committee, Green Acres, Natural Resource Conservation Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, 10 nonprofits, Rutgers, Rowans, and including State Historic Preservation Office. So at the first meeting, we asked the committee, what indicators does your agency or organization use to identify priority lands to preserve, and where do you work? This group came up with almost 197 specifically different indicators or characteristics of land that guide their preservation and activities. Now that was for everything, in preserving water quality, habitats, farms, and all. So if you're looking at, and then I'm going to the preserved land layer, looking at, right here are the indicators for agriculture, which John will get into much more deeply. So then Rowan, New Jersey Conservation Foundation, and the Nature Conservancy matched those indicators with data layers. And our criteria for mapping was, as Steve said, that statewide data had to already exist. So that cut down the number of indicators significantly. But we're not getting rid of our list, and we'll be seeking ways to improve or generate needed data as time goes on. So the indicators were mapped, and since we still needed to identify the best lands preserved, we wanted to develop a prioritization system. And that's what John will show you for ag. And that's what you're seeing on your screen now. Members of the steering committee divided into ag advisory groups to develop this priority system for each agriculture, ecology, and community green space. Other experts were invited to share their expertise as appropriate. The SADC, NJCF, and NRCS participated in the Ag Advisory Council and established a point system for the ag priority ranking. So Dr. Hatsey will go through the map and show how that works on the map. But what's nice about the blueprint, it's a very flexible system. A town or county can look at our ag priorities. Those are the colored areas that you see there, and accept them in their county plan. Or, as more likely the case, you can create your own priority system using the various layers that's included in the system. So over the past 2 years, we've been meeting with groups to invite people to use the map, give us feedback on the priority system, if it's working for them, because we want to step up the pace of conservation. And we need to make an easy, flexible system to identify special properties, and we're on our way to meeting that goal. But we're not done. To ensure the most productive, best farmland and the best, most resilient natural areas are preserved, we need to work with you, the steering committee, and the whole conservation community to develop a vision and strategies for protecting what's left. So we welcome well, there used to be a comment up there somewhere, but we welcome your comments, and John will show you that. Questions, concerned about the priority system methodology, and any aspects of the blueprint. because we really do want to hear from you. So thank you for your time, and for the State Agriculture Development Committee for facilitating this presentation. So, Steve, if you have anything to add, please do so. But otherwise, Dr. Hassey, take us to the maps.
All right. Let me give John control here.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Can you see my screen now? I'm moving New Jersey around a little bit here.
I think there's a bit of a delay, John, but I do have you as the presenter.
Okay.
It might take a second.
Hold on here. Oh, I think I have to push a button here. All right.
Here we go.
Can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Audience view 100%. Awesome. Good morning, everyone, from Glassboro, New Jersey. Very happy to be working on this webinar and to be able to demonstrate the NJ Map project, and specifically the Conservation Blueprint Agricultural Priority Layer. Can you hear me okay? Do I sound all right? You hear me, Steve?
Sound good to me, John, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think I still have control, though, so I don't see your...
You don't see... I'm zooming in, for example, now to Burlington County. Is that what?
No, I still have control. So.
What do you see, Steve?
No, it's zooming in and out of Burlington. So.
That's
okay.
me.
Okay.
Great.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
All right. Awesome. So let me just start with a little bit of a bigger overview, and that the Conservation Blueprint is part of our mapping project here at Rowan, and that is our NJ Map project. NJ Map is a number of different maps, and we have a number of them that are on the docket and being in production as well. And this particular project of the Conservation Blueprint is one that we've really spent a lot of effort on in the last 2 years, and it's our kind of our flagship project for now. But you'll see that when we're in the maps themselves, you can get access to our other projects by simply going to the maps layer. And so I'm going to show that now. So the Conservation Blueprint consists of 4 different themes, and the overview maps, that's all the Conservation Blueprint project. But then there's also Parcel Explorer, Municipal Land Use Change, and Land Change Viewer, and some others that are in the work as well. Well, we will be looking at Parcel Explorer quite a bit, but to just let you know that the other maps are part of the NJ Map project, the umbrella mapping vehicle that we serve here at Rowan. But we're really just focusing today on the agricultural theme of the Conservation Blueprint. So I just want to kind of make that clear, how NJ Map and the Conservation Blueprint, how they're organized and how they play into each other. So here we are, we're showing New Jersey statewide with just the priority for lands layer on. And this is really the punchline of the whole theme, and that this is a model showing the different criteria and how they add up to show areas that have potential to be valuable for the agricultural preservation process. I'm going to go through, and in doing this, showing you how the model was made, give you an idea of how the functionality of the NJ Map and the Conservation Blueprint works. But we'll start with the main theme. And so then when you come on to one of our maps, and I'm going to click on the refresh button here. This brings you back to the default layers. In this case, the default layers is the model. And the model, you can get the legend for it by clicking on the down arrow. And so this is showing that everything that's blue, the model shows as high priority, green, medium priority, and yellow is priority. And I'm going to show you how these different points were developed for these different priorities. You can get more information about the model itself by clicking on the More button. And this is showing the point systems that are used in adding it up. And I'm going to go through them and to show you how they build the layer. But that's where you find more information about each layer. You keep drilling down, into each layer to find out how it was created and where you can find the source data for it and the metadata for it. We also have, for this one particular layer, a summary analysis that shows the amount of blue, green, and yellow land areas by county. So that's helpful because the counties are a little bit different because of the different geographies there. And then there's also our methodology document, which details the way that the model was created. And so you can just click on this additional information link, and that'll open up that document. So you can read through and get an idea of exactly what went in to create this priority layer that gives us the high, medium, and regular priority maps here. Okay, so the some other conventions that are throughout all the NJMAP layers is our little background icon over here. You can change the background to different background images. This can be quite helpful. We have it defaulted for the agricultural priority model to a terrain so that you can really highlight the colors of the model. But for most of the time, I typically use the Bing aerial with labels because that renders really quickly. It's being served from Bing, which has mega servers around the world. Thank you, Amazon, and it renders really quickly. But we also have New Jersey state data. So for example, the aerials 2015, you can get them. They're a little bit slower. They're actually working pretty good this morning. Sometimes they're just really slow, and I'm not sure where that bottleneck is, but it seems to be that it's being served from a server that doesn't have the capacity of the Amazon servers. But very useful imagery. So for example, you can go back to 2007 imagery. You can bring up the infrared imagery, which is often quite helpful for determining issues with soil moisture and so forth. Now you can see infrared is not rendering very well. So I'm not sure what's going on there with the state. But we have historic maps that can be helpful, and black and white 1930. Seems like nothing's rendering now. So I'm just demonstrating that sometimes the state data doesn't come in very quickly. And so I'm going to try to see if we can work with the state to make that be quicker, but those layers are there and they can be quite useful to show historical imagery and so forth. But here, if we have the Bing imagery, then we have a relatively recent aerial photo as a backdrop, and that can really help us to see individual features on the farms as we zoom into different layers. Okay, so that's to change the backdrop there. Let me go through the component layers themselves. So this is really getting to where the model is going to be explained well. And I'm going to put the terrain back on just so that it's not competing with it, so we can see what's happening here. So here I'm in Hunterdon County, and if we go through the component layers that make the model, we can see how it actually was built. So the model can be up to 10 points. Those points are related to each one of these layers. So the thing that we start with is the preserved farmland. Okay, so this is the existing, most recent farmland preservation layer rendered there, and then the next layer would be prime or farm soils, and prime is the darker color, and statewide importance is the next level of tan, and then the lighter brown is unique or locally important soils. Okay, each one of those are points in our system. So the dark brown, the prime, that gets 3 points, and the statewide gets 2 points, and unique and locally important gets 1 point. So there we go. That's showing the first 3 possible points in the model. The next layer is agricultural land as it's been delineated by the 2012 land use land cover data, and I'll show that over top of the imagery so we can kind of verify that. If we zoom in here to Hunterdon County, and I can change the opacity to show that in fact it's a pretty good rendering of those agricultural fields. Now the agricultural wetlands are depicted with the wetlands symbol on it so that you can get a sense of what the data is showing as agricultural wetlands. Of course, in these type of situations, they're drained. In the Pinelands, they're often more of the cranberries and blueberries would be that agricultural wetlands designation. But we have it rendered this way so that it can be clear, at least what the data is showing, where those agricultural wetlands are. Agricultural land, if you are active farmland as of 2012, then it gets 3 points. Okay, so that's one of the things we've changed over the past year and a half of working this model, that we've bumped up the weighting of active agriculture to 3 points. And now farm soil is 3 points, agricultural land is 3 points as well. And so that's up to 6 points of the model. So you can see if you have agricultural land and you have farm soils, you already could be at medium priority just for those two things being present. Okay, and the metadata for land use land cover, of course, you can get it that way. The next layer is our parcels adjacency to preserved farms. Let me turn preserved farmland back on, and what we have here is parcels that are adjacent, and okay, so those are parcels that are adjacent. They can be adjacent across the road, so we didn't make it just touching. We made it to be within 75 feet to capture parcels that are potentially across the road and would not have come through if you just did immediate adjacency. But we also eliminated parcels that were not agricultural thresholds layer, and I'll get to that at the end to make that really clear. But what the rationale for that is that if you're a parcel that does not have an indication of being over that agricultural threshold, you are not included as adjacent or as within a half mile. And that's to eliminate forest parcels that were coming in and making there be more forest than was really useful for the model. Okay, so those are parcels that are adjacent to preserved farmland. If we zoom out, you can see that there are areas where you have lots of farmland preservation, and we created a model that shows infill in between areas that are already have a significant amount of farmland preservation. This is a model that used a neighborhood search function. It looked within, using a raster GIS, it looked within a mile circumference, and it added up the total number of pixels and assigned those cells if, within that area, how much farmland was in that 1 mile radius. And what it did is created these belts areas that help to identify infill areas that might be higher priority to create that belt. So that was a range that we kind of just chose as a gut check about what was working well. That can be adjusted. We can make it be less than a mile or more than a mile. We can adjust it in different ways. But this worked pretty good at capturing those infill areas to make farm belts. And so that gets 1 point. So 1 point for adjacent parcels, 1 point for infill, and then 1 point for parcels that are within a half mile of preserve. So that the larger area, to try to capture some of those parcels that are near existing farmland preservation, but not right adjacent to it, and maybe not right in the middle of a farm infilled belt area. Those three things are 1 point each. So we have a point for adjacent, a point for infill, and a point for within a half mile. And that added to the score gets us up to 9 points. The 10th point is this concept of an agricultural threshold parcel. And what that is, this actually should be up in the component layer. And so imagine that this is here. It should actually be up there. But the agricultural threshold parcel is simply identifying parcels in New Jersey, intersecting those parcels with the farmland layer, and then determining whether, one, a parcel was larger than 5 acres, which is required for being eligible for farmland preservation. So it's a larger than 5 acre parcel that has at least half of the size of the parcel is in agricultural land use, up to 25 acres. So if you have a 10-acre parcel and at least 5 acres are farmland, then it gets flagged as an agricultural threshold parcel. It's over that threshold of having sufficient amount of agricultural activity indicated by the size of the agricultural land under that is identifiable in the parcel. Up to 50 acres, if you have half or more of the parcel in agriculture, up to 50 acres, then it's included. Above 50 acres, it's just you have 25 acres of a parcel that is in agriculture, then it is also included. So you could have a 100-acre farm, and as long as you had 25 acres of agriculture, it would be also included in this agricultural threshold parcel. Okay, so agricultural threshold parcel comes in here 2 different ways. It's added as 1 point, and it also is, when we do the adjacency to the farmland preservation, it only selects parcels that are flagged as threshold parcels. So that, again, we're eliminating the emphasis on some of the forested parcels that were coming in that really were not as likely to be viable for agriculture. Steve or Laura, do you want to chime in here at this point to fill in anything about the model itself?
I was just going to say, John, the ag threshold parcels, the 50% tillable or a minimum of 25 acres, that of course is right from our minimum eligibility criteria.
Right. And so that's what really inspired that layer. That was added also in the model as it evolved over the last year and a half. And that's really, I think, helped it to focus on really identifying the viable parcels. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how the model was created. That's where the 10 points come from. And again, this is the model as we created it, but I can imagine that in different parts of the state or for different regions, there might be more interest on just some components of the model. And so they're all available here to help when there is activity being done on any particular parcel. Let me also then get into the reference layers here. Reference layers are not used in the model, again, except for agriculture threshold, really organizationally should be in the component layers because that does give a point. But we have parcels that are identified as Q farm from Mod 4, okay? Now, Q farm, of course, can be wooded lots sometimes, and the Mod 4 data is not always matching the parcels. We have it about 90% accurate. So 90% of the parcels we believe have the Mod 4 tax assessment data properly joined. But the point is, well, all GIS data, of course, has its limitations. The farmland tax assessment layer is the best that we have been able to render. But, you know, as with all the layers, use them with caution. It may not be, it may miss some parcels that might be farmland tax assessed, or they may come through as tax assessed and it might be old information. We have open space that's not the farmland preservation, but is preserved open space layer, okay? And that's a data layer that's produced by the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, and it represents our best combined layer of open space that we've been working with. It gets a pretty good job of covering a lot of the open space. It doesn't get some of the municipal level easements and that type of thing that we're all waiting for the open space layer for New Jersey to be further developed. And as soon as we get better information, we will put it up there. But having it, the open space along with the preserved farmland really gives it more of a idea of the network of preserved lands. Another layer that we have is the Pinelands management areas. I'll have to go down to the Pinelands to see that, right? So you can get an idea of the Pinelands planning areas. If that is a place where you have a project, you can turn this layer on. We have just the outline as well, so you can see, are you in the Pinelands or not in the Pinelands? We have the Highlands area also as a reference layer, okay? So we have Highlands planning areas and preservation areas, and then the Highlands compatibility zones. So you have a couple different layers that can help you to know what your context is for the parcel you might be working on in relationship to those regional planning areas. We also have wastewater service area. That can be helpful in giving context to whether a parcel is in wastewater service area, and maybe be a consideration of whether it's higher or lower on a priority because of its geography related to that. We have the county agricultural development map, as well as the county, so that's 88 areas, and then the county farmland project areas. Some of them are overlaps, some of them aren't. When we have the visibility so that they're both transparent, you can kind of see both of those geographies at the same time, and where they overlap, it's purple, and where they don't, it's either blue or red, so that's kind of helpful. But again, those are not used in the model, they're just being provided as helpful reference layers. We have CAFRA, and we have some road layers. Again, that's actually in here to be able to show geographic context without having the roads be too complicated. So those are the reference layers that we have available to help with the process. The next thing that I want to kind of highlight here, which I think really helps the on the ground work, is our parcel function. So if we have our farmland preservation and we have our priority model turned on here, you can turn on the municipal layer to try to maybe orient yourself to a particular town. And when you zoom into a town, you can see how the geography is showing areas of the highest in blue and medium in green. But if you turn on the parcel layer, this is where you can really start to have information to help with individual farms and properties. And when the parcel layer on, it shows a labeling of the parcel, lot, and block. But if you click on a parcel, it'll tell you what a summary information is for that parcel. Now, you have to have parcels turned on for this summary bubble to show up. And it's going to give you a little thumbnail and tell you what the parcel ID number is and whether it's farm qualified and how many acres. And then it's going to give you the different values of the blueprint models. And you can see here, this on average, this parcel has an average of 7.5. And so that's pretty good. But if we want more information, you can click on Show in Parcel Explorer. And what that does is it zooms in on that particular parcel in our other NJMap tool. And this tool is really dedicated to try to provide as much information about parcels as possible. And so now we're zoomed into that layer, and we can see the data that's collected for each parcel. So the first tab is the Mod 4 data. And so you have all the Mod 4 information that's available, and it gives whether it's farm qualified, owner, the land value, and so forth, and the deed book, and all that information that's provided from Mod 4. And then some of the other tabs, we have planning. Is it in preservation? No. Is it in an ag development area? Yes. So some of the layers that you can see overlaid, you have them coded here by the parcel. And one of the reasons for that, as we'll see, is you can do a search on some of these criteria and possibly show things that you're interested in. Is it in an agricultural development area? Is it over 100 acres? And create a query and have that be highlighted of what fulfills those particular criteria. Preservation status, not preserved. Basic measurements. Okay, so how large is, and this is by GIS, what's the elevation, mean slope, and so forth. If it's in a wastewater area, what the land use is. So this is breaking it down by the DEP land use land cover for that parcel. It's 85% crop and pasture land, so that can be helpful. And farm soils tells you that 70% of it is prime farm soils, 30% is state, what watershed it's in, and at the Huck 11 or Huck 14, groundwater recharge rate, and then the models. What is the models for conservation blueprint values in there? Okay, so that's the parcel tool, and you can search for a name. Let me see if I can find myself here. I don't have farmland, but let's see if it works. Okay, and I'm seeing that here I am, right here, right? So you can search on a name, on a parcel. Yeah, I have a little tiny garden. That doesn't count. I'm not above the 5-acre threshold. But what it does is allows you to search statewide for on those different possible criteria or variables. Okay. Another thing that we want to do at this parcel level, and this works in the conservation blueprint, it works across all themes. We have a right-click function that allows us to bring up other maps. And so if I right-click on this parcel, and it helps if you're near a road, and I'll explain why. So I'm clicking on this parcel that we're looking at, and then I'm going to say, what's here? So if you need to know the latitude and longitude, you can right-click anywhere and say, what's here? If you click near a road that's near your parcel and you say, what's here? You're going to see that it should, I should prove myself right. It might, oh, that might be a railroad. Okay, well, let's try this over here. Does that work? What's here? Okay, I'm not getting my, hold on here. What's here? Normally, we would have Google Street View would be able to come up. Not working. All right. And that's a really cool thing, but it's not working here. We'll try it one more time. Oh, there we go. So that, I don't know why it didn't work on the other one, but that's not my house. There's my house over here. Yeah, and there's somebody walking their dog in front of my house. How cool is that? But anyway, it should work on any of the NJ maps that you right-click, and that can be really helpful for getting an idea of what the farm might look like from the street and giving you some helpful information. Another thing that we have is we have Zillow. So that can be helpful for just getting an idea of what the sales are in that area recently, which could be helpful information. We have also the ability to have NJ GeoWeb come up. Now they just changed that, and so now the way that they changed it is not, we have to have it zoom into that point again. So now it's just giving me a default New Jersey for NJ GeoWeb. The way that this worked until they changed it was that when you click on NJ GeoWeb, it would zoom in and have the center of the screen be at the same location, so that can be helpful. We also have Google Earth, and that can be quite helpful for getting a better lay of the geography at that point that you right-click on it. And so it does one of these cool kind of zoom around things where you can say, all right, there's my farm. What is my geography around the farm? What's going on here? And you can very quickly be a geographer and get a lay of the land of that particular parcel by using Google Earth's very cool 3D rendering. Okay, so very quickly with these spatial links, you can get a lot of information about any parcel, and you can get a real sense of things using the right click and having these other web pages that are supporting information for the parcel that you're working on. Okay, so that gives you, I think, a pretty good idea of the model, of the reference layers, of the right-click functionality. Couple other functions that we have that I'll share quickly. You can change to some of our other layers, and it should stay in the same geography. Yeah, it does. Okay, so you can, in essence, here create a map looking at the water priority layer, or go back to agriculture, and it stays in the same geographic location. You can duplicate your tabs and then have both of them be showing at the same time. You can search for an address, or you can search on latitude and longitude if you want to get to a particular location or a particular address. You can, and this is helpful, you can share this particular screen with somebody. It will capture what layers you have turned on and what zoom you're in. And I've been doing this quite a lot lately, where I'm having a phone conversation, not unlike our webinar right now. And although it's not a webinar, in order to describe where I am, I just email the link for that location. So if you bring up another tab here and paste it and say enter, it should reproduce that particular map. So that way you can really keep a list yourself, if you want to paste it into Evernote, or you can share it with somebody else and be able to be talking about the same location pretty quickly. You can, and this is one of the places that Laura mentioned, please, this is an effort that has really been made so much better by comments and by feedback and by wish lists. And we try very much to address the feedback that we have and to try to bring them into the model. So please feel free, even if you just want to say, hey, this is great. We like to get those kind of comments as well. But you can do that here under the comments. You can print the screen and you can see a video tutorial for some of the stuff that I'm actually showing you a little bit more detail than the video does of how to use the NJMap interface. I think that's a pretty good overview. Does Steve or Laura, do you want to chime in or fill in any gaps that maybe I missed?
I just wanted to say that we're trying to get the map to be a one-stop shop so that you know who your partners are, if you're interested in a particular property, who you can talk to. You know, that's the being in an ADA. It could be available for state funding potentially, and so that's we're still working on some of the partnerships that you could you know reference. So, but that's just one of our goals, is to make put as much as we can on here to increase the pace of conservation.
Okay. We got a couple more minutes here. If you do have any questions, there was a lot of information. I'm always amazed each time I get shown the project, how I find some new functionality. So we got a few minutes. If you have questions, type them in now. And I thought we would go through just a couple of examples, just to see, zoomed in a bit to show how the model works. So let's see here. Okay, so we're looking at, well, I think we'll just look at the two examples here in Salem County that kind of demonstrate, you know, the methodology. So this area we saw is an area southeast Carneys Point, where it's split by Mannington Township by the Salem River. You can really see, and John, if you turn on the preserved farmland layer, okay, you can see how this area, there's a kind of a distinct line between the blue parcels and where it's primarily green. A lot of preserved farmland here. John, if you want to turn in some of those proximity parcels, you can see why some of these parcels are getting the blue points. So there's a lot of you know, adjacency, which gets all the parcels, at least that are identified here, to a green, to a medium priority. The reason why some of them aren't all green, all blue here, is the soils layer. So you'll see a pretty distinct, you know, boundary line here between the prime soils and the statewide soils and areas where the soils maybe aren't identified as such, which is the reason why I just want to point out. So we can get a lot of these agricultural parcels with proximity will get you to a medium priority or a priority or a medium priority designation. But really, you know, until you get that, you know, the soils, you're not going to get typically the highest priority ranking. So again, a lot of these parcels with poorer soils will get the medium priority through proximity to existing preserve farms. And John, if we'll go down to the southwest corner of Woodstown in Pilesgrove, we kind of have the flip side here. So this block of green that you see in the middle of the screen here, and then we could turn on the farmland soils layer. You'll see this is an area of, a pretty dense area of prime soils, which gets it to the medium priority. And then we'll turn the soils off. It's a big block of ag land. And if we turn on the preserved farmland, you'll see this is kind of an area that, and there's proximity layers. So this is getting the meat to the medium score just by soils itself and the ag threshold parcels. But without that proximity, it's ranking as medium. So again, still a priority designation, but you're not getting to that highest priority without the combination of the soils and the proximity to existing preserved farmland. So this, of course, I think John mentioned, getting to that highest designation is based on that combination of factors. If you zoom out a little bit here, South Jersey, Salem County, and Cumberland County in particular, Gloucester, you can see a lot of that. There's a lot of preservations taking place, a lot of great soils. That doesn't mean that each, like I said earlier in the session, each county has their own designation criteria based on the agricultural attributes in the county and the way they're going to preserve. Again, this is a statewide analysis. If we want to zoom out, just to demonstrate in the north here, we got an area in where Hope, White, and Knowlton townships come together in Warren County. And again, this is another example here of that first scenario where we had proximity. I think if you can just zoom in here a little bit, John.
Where?
It's where, I'm sorry, it's where Hope, White, and Knowlton townships come together.
Okay, where Hope, White, and...
Yeah, right in there. So, we see some, with the proximity to existing preserved farms, we see a lot of the priority and the medium priority lands. And if you turn on that soils layer, you can really see how, that soils layer affects the priority model. And this is fairly typical of much of Sussex and Warren counties. Hunterdon County, we get more of the prime soils. But again, it's the models to be applied, differently in different parts of the state based on the resources available. So then, just one last, we'll go to Homedale Township in Monmouth County. I just wanted to demonstrate there's not too many of these parcels, but a little bit to the south there, John. Oh no, I'm sorry, Homedale right there. If you zoom in there, just to the right in the center, right, that yellow right there, John. Yes. So that is a completely wooded parcel. So this property is getting a priority designation, even though it's not a tilled parcel. And so we wanted the model to be able to bring up parcels like that just based on its existing land use is not agriculture, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't be. The ag resources are there. So if you turn on the soils layer, you'll see that soils designation. So it's got prime soils, and it also hits on gets to be a priority based on the proximity layers. So again, this is just an example. There's really not too many of these examples. Based on the majority of the time, the parcels that have good agricultural soils and are in areas that are adjacent to or in proximity to existing farmland and preserved farmland are going to be tilled just historically. But I just want to point this out as an example of a wooded parcel that could show as a priority parcel. That's all I had at this point. I don't see, let's see if we have any questions. Clicking. I'm not sure exactly what that means. So we're going to be this, like I said earlier, this the blueprint model and the interface here definitely takes some time to play with to fully understand all its functionality. So we certainly encourage you to do that. If you have questions, John pointed out that comments section. If you have specific agricultural questions or issues with the model, or think it should be, tweaked that doesn't, in a way that reflects statewide priorities, feel free to contact me at the SADC, and we could talk about it. I could bring it to the larger Ag Committee. Like I said earlier, this was a back and forth process where we tried to get to that sweet spot of prioritizing what we thought was consistent with our program, but not be overly limiting. Looking at some of the acreages, it shows about 664,000 total ag acres, and this is in that spreadsheet that John pointed out previously. It's broken out by county. Of the 664,000 total ag acres shown in the land use land cover, the model covers about 389,000 ag acres. And then, so when you subtract that 389 from the 664, it gets you to about 274,000 acres that are not covered in the model. And that includes, though, the land in the preserved. You got to remember that the preserved lands were taken out of the model. That's why it's so important to, when you bring up the model, bring up the open space layer, bring up the preserved farm layer to help you understand why some parcels, otherwise it would really be shown as holes in the model. So it's, and considering we have about 227,000 preserved acres, we're really getting to the acreage is making a lot of sense in terms of, what's preserved, what's still targeted. We've got about 251,000 acres targeted by our county and municipal pig partners. And so when you start considering some of these numbers, you certainly, they really do start to make sense in the context of our program. So that's all I had. We're just about out of time here. John or Laura, did you have any other closing, anything? Any other
Yes,
closing comments?
I did. I wanted to thank you, Steve, and the State Agriculture Development Committee for sharing this with the other ag partners, and also for participating in the steering committee. The ag map is great, and we really appreciate your participation.
Well, thanks.
And I want to ditto those thanks. Yeah, and this has been a great project for Rowan. Students are involved with this; they're learning this, and hopefully, we're creating something that is, helping with the public service. And we feel really proud to be a partner in this project. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for your help. We're going to be this is the first introduction really with our preservation partners to the conservation blueprint. So again, we welcome your comments. We're going to be bringing this as just as an introduction to the SADC committee meeting in the next month or two. So if you do have comments or questions, please let me know and get in touch. All right, thank you all for attending. We really appreciate your involvement here, and hopefully we'll get some good comments and good feedback, and we hope that it becomes a really useful tool for our partners. All right, thank you very much. Have a great day and a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.